You have to speak for those who can't.
And for Kimberly Bass, she says it's for the children she worked with inside Cumberland Hospital.
My job was basically overseeing all the programmatic measures of the residential treatment program.
In January, Bass began her career at the 16-bed New Kent facility that is designed for kids who have chronic illnesses, brain injuries, or neurological problems, along with behavioral issues.
So we basically become their caregivers. That's what we are, you know, and our job is to make sure that they're safe.
But in doing so, Bass says she'd lose her job just 7 months after starting.
I got fired for what? You know, because I won't sit back and allow kids to get abused, neglected, or exploited and do nothing about it. Patient out of control, self-injury, patient attack.
Bass reads from a list of incidents recorded inside this hospital.
They played a game of lesbian truth or dare.
Documents that CBS 6 has exclusively obtained. And according to the Virginia Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, should have all been reported within 24 hours into the state's computerized human rights information system known as CRIS.
And they found discrepancies. They found that there were many issues that the state should have been notified about, but they weren't.
According to a June 20th state inspection report, the hospital was cited for non-compliance with human rights regulations, one of several citations. The investigation found that between January and June, 24 incidents involving 10 patients went unreported. Everything from patients injuring staff to hurting and threatening each other. But it's the alleged incident that Bass says happened inside a bedroom between two female teens that ultimately led to her termination.
On July 28th, there were two minor girls in a bedroom for 4 hours. And both girls had a history of sexual trauma, sexual abuse, sexually acting out. And we do 15-minute checks at minimum.
Bass says she was told by a fellow staff member that never happened that Sunday, and the teens allegedly admitted to sexually acting out. Bass says she called and informed the girls' parents and entered the incident into the CRIS system, initiating an investigation. She says Cumberland Hospital ultimately cleared the staff on duty that day of wrongdoing. Bass would express her discontent with the decision.
I'm telling you about wrongdoings that are going on internally, and you write me up. I tell you about kids that are being neglected, and you fire me.
Bass would send this email to state officials August 20th documenting the alleged event.
The state did send a licensing specialist out here September 5th conducting an investigation of its own. And after reviewing 3 hours of video footage, they found that staff did do rounds every 10 minutes and that individuals were in and out of their rooms. But for privacy reasons, they do not have cameras inside of those rooms. They were, however, not able to interview those teens in that complaint because they had already been discharged.
The investigation determined the complaint was not substantiated and the hospital was in compliance with regulations. As for why Bass was discharged, Cumberland would document it was for denying a resident use of the bathroom. Bass denies that allegation.
If any child has to use the bathroom, they go to their assigned staff and they make that request. That's not in my job description.
Bass is now receiving unemployment after an investigation determined that she was not fired because of any misconduct at work.
You were terminated, and some may say that's why she's speaking out.
I was speaking out while I was working. So I'm doing nothing no different than what I was doing when I was at the job. The only difference is that when I reached out to my company, they didn't want to hear me.
CBS 6 reached out to the hospital through their owners. Cumberland CEO said in part, quote, The facts as depicted by the terminated employee are inaccurate. I can confirm that incidents are to be reported to the state regulatory agency within 24 hours of occurrence. In fact, this reporting obligation was the responsibility of the former employee referenced and was not carried out in the identified instance. Our facility has established operating procedures and protocols in place. We do not tolerate deviation from our high standards or for compliance with required practices, end quote. DBHDS confirms all corrective actions have been taken by the hospital, but points out that if it happens again, it could affect the status of the provider's license.